Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our epic four-part discussion of the miniseries version of Stephen King's The Stand. Tonight, part 2, where the miniseries continues to pile on guest stars and main stars, and the bad guy begins to show himself. This movie is taking its time, but I actually am charmed by it. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead, from Denver, Colorado, which is very close to Boulder, Colorado, where our heroes wind up.
Not represented at all in this movie.
Well, we'll get to that. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer for Rockabilly Online, and creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man for Monsterverse Comics. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
Hello. Also from Austin, Tony Salvaggio, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars and co-creator of the comic Psycom from Tokyo Pop and Clockworks from Humanoids, and so many more interesting things. Hello, Tony.
Howdy. It's good to be back.
Also a member of the initiative.
Yes. Yes.
There you go.
Welcome back. Do you know, actually, in the Sword of Dracula comic book series that I write occasionally, like once every whatever, there's a character called Agent Salvaggio who just gets killed over and over again.
Well, he never dies. That's what I like. Is although Jason is willing to put Agent Salvaggio through.
He's turned you into Kenny from South Park.
Yeah, no, Tony's character never dies, but my character died the very first book that Jason ever wrote. So what does that tell you? That
I didn't. It wasn't you. Just because I told you
he kills the ones he loves.
And yet I've never been killed at anything, so I don't rate.
How would you know? The characters don't. Anyway, okay.
It's because Jason knows nothing short of silver bullets will kill me.
There you go.
Okay. Also joining us from Denver, as always, that you heard that voice. Color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
The late Julia.
Yes. All right. According to Wikipedia, The Stand is a 1994 American television miniseries based on the novel of the same name by Stephen King. King also wrote the meandering, sometimes teleplay, and it has a cameo role in the series. I haven't seen that part yet. It was directed by Mick Garris and stars a whole bunch of people, but the main ones we meet, at least in the first couple of nights, are Gary Sinise, Rob Lowe, Miguel Ferrer, Molly Ringwald, Adam Stork, Ed Harris, Ray Walston, my favorite Martian. It originally aired on ABC starting May 8th, 1994. And I remember watching like every single night just with bated breath. I would run home to watch this show. Okay, let's get our opening thoughts. Tony, since you were not able to join us last week, I think we should start with you this week. We'll go Tony, Drew, Joya, and then, God knows, I may say something or just spin us into the topics. So, first impressions, let's keep it short and then dive in, although you can go longer because you missed last week. Tony, The Stand, what are you thinking, having just watched 2 hours of this?
Oh,
or 2 episodes.
I had forgotten how very TV it was. I thought it had like a slightly bigger budget, but it kind of doesn't. I still really like it. In fact, I really liked the novel. My mom was getting her master's, I want to say, in microbiology when she read it, and then she was like, I read it. You should read this, son. And it really, especially the beginning part on how not only does it happen so quickly and the way it would happen, a spread like that would happen, as well as how the U.S. weaponizes it just to make sure that the other countries are infected as well, so we don't get taken over. All of that stuff, extremely plausible, extremely scary, and still pretty scary. But I think it also led to kind of how we have zombie series now. Even the zombie thing as a virus, I think The Stand definitely helped, push things along in a different way. And I think it influenced, I would say, things like The Walking Dead.
Oh, for sure.
And Resident Evil and stuff like that.
Something we kind of touched on last week a lot was the Romero-ness of this.
Yeah, well, it came from that, but then even in in the original Night of the Living Dead. It was just
no,
you know,
it
a thing
have the
happened.
Scientific plausibility, sure.
So now that The Stand was out, I think people are like, oh, well, that makes sense. There's our vector. There's how this, you know, there's how it goes. I like a lot of the casting. I think it's interesting. We can get into it later. The tail end of this episode, I think, is where a lot of friends of mine kind of check out. A lot of friends enjoy the hard science, you know, part, and like less and less the God versus the devil supernatural part. And a lot of people I know balk at that. But I don't know. It's Stephen King, so I'm down with whatever. So
very, very
I still
good.
like it.
Right.
I like the series a lot.
Wow, thank you very much, and welcome back. And it's so good to have four voices. I just feel it's like we're missing a wheel whenever Tony's gone.
Oh, well, sorry I missed it last week.
No, it's fine. All right, Drew, we're never missing a wheel with you. Lay it on us. What are your thoughts? Second night.
This is the part of the miniseries that I actually feel like this picks up for me. It's funny Tony saying that the tail end of this, you know, it loses people. To me, you know, the post-apocalyptic survivor thing, like we've seen that, and that's something I want to discuss, and it is something that's become very, very popular, as Tony has noted. And I like all that stuff, but I love the biblical, you know, mythology that King is playing with here. Like I find that very fascinating, and the fact that he does blend that into what starts out as more or less science fiction scenario is really interesting to me. So this part of the miniseries is really where it starts to get interesting for me. I think, you know, I kind of was ribbing on Molly Ringwald last episode. I think she's a lot better in this part. Maybe it's because they give her a little more to do. The only thing that I think I might thumb my nose at a little bit is the a little too obvious of mice and men riff that King does with a couple of the characters.
Yeah, I don't know. I still use MOON. That spell whatever at the time, like all the time.
Jamie and I for the last, you know, several days have been doing MON. That spells whatever.
Exactly. Well, I've been doing that for years between my brother and I, and that's. Oh, I mean, since before when I just read the book, I think my brother had read it as well. But definitely after the miniseries came out, we've used that for whatever. It doesn't even. I can't even give a good example of why, but just sometimes that's how you do it. MOON, that spells space rocket. I don't know.
I don't hate it. It is very like it's so far past being an homage. I think it's veering into being a ripoff. I don't hate it. Having said that,
I mean, George. First of all, George in that book is not a Jesus figure. I mean, whereas Nick is literally the most saintly creature ever to appear on screen.
I'm going to disagree with you there.
What do you mean?
Because he like totally slaps that woman, even though she totally had it coming.
Well,
that's not as saintly as maybe Jesus or somebody.
I suppose that's true. Okay.
I don't know.
That's a little Humphrey Bogart-esque, who certainly was not known for playing saintly characters.
But this is not my point. I'm saying that's a saintly character. Nick is an extraordinarily sweet Billy Budd-like guy. I mean, Billy Budd, same thing.
No
Billy
doubt.
Budd, extremely sweet and kills somebody. And George was a cynical guy who was caring for Lenny because just the goodness in his heart.
Are you denying to me that King was inspired of a mice and men? But I'm
certain there's a mice and men thing going on here.
All right. Well, then moving on. I give the floor to Julia.
We get to that.
Moving on.
Julia, lay it on us.
So that crazy bitch, Julie Laurie, who is like the one that actually causes
Nick
Rob Lowe's character, whatever. What's Rob Lowe's character's name? Nick to lose his cool such that he actually slaps her and points a gun at her. That is crazy. She's like such a nut. And it's a really interesting scene to have her like flipping out like that, because you really kind of you really sympathize with those guys and with her. You kind of sympathize with her because you're like, I would probably be crazy at this point too.
But we're going to get to that in the section. I want to hear.
I'm just saying that's like, to me, that's probably the most interesting part of this episode.
You're saying he can be angelic, but almost anybody would have smacked Julie Laurie at that point.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else I would have done. I don't think I would have slapped her.
How would you get away from her? Yeah, no, it's a good.
But she was crazy. But anyway, so that was really interesting. You know, I don't love it as much as, like, I think I would have thought I had remember. I don't know if I can't make that sentence make sense. I don't like it as much as I remembered liking the second part. But I guess I don't remember like individual parts that well. But you know, there's some cool things. I mean, it's interesting to see the team kind of coming together. You know, the good guys, and the whole thing with Boulder just cracks me up because we live like 40 minutes from Boulder, and it's nothing like what's in the movie, so that's kind of funny.
Well, that's
we talked about last
I was
time,
calling them out on East Texas last week, so I mean, you're entitled.
Well, and we were talking about last time that it was because Colorado had passed this amendment to the state constitution that would nullify existing laws that protected gay rights, and so they, in protest, they moved it to Utah instead of filming in Boulder. So, but anyway, so that was amusing. But yeah, you know, it's okay. It's not the greatest, but it's okay.
It's so funny because I never think of Utah as a state that's well known for its support of gay rights.
Yeah.
But what do I know? I mean, seriously, what do I know about that in the 90s? So, okay, yeah, the Boulder that they wind up looks nothing like Boulder, because the Boulder they wind up in is a hilly hilly place with essentially no buildings, and the actual Boulder is a very flat place right at the edge of the mountains, and it looks like Austin, Texas. I'm not kidding. It really looks, you know, like Boulder, you know, 16th Street in Boulder looks like 6th Street in Austin, and they're nearly identical towns. It's nothing like this, but that's okay. That's totally, you know, or maybe they go well out of town, you know, out by the Celestial Seasonings Tea Factory. Maybe that's where they're filming at the end. But that's the end. Let's go back to overall. Before we start the beginning, I just want to say I am really surprised at what Stephen King has done here, because he starts out with this sort of Andromeda Strain kind of story. And for the first whole episode, that's kind of all it is, except for everybody's a little bit of supernatural. Everybody's having these visions, and we get brief glimpses of Jamie Sheridan as Flag, who one of our writers wrote in to say, you keep calling him the devil. That's not completely wrong, but more properly, he's like a chaos agent, you know, who's sort of encompasses the myths of the devil, which I think is fair enough. You know, we can keep thinking about that. But that you know, there's Flag who was just showing up. But in that first one, it's almost totally hard sci-fi. And in this one, there's a lot more of the visions and stuff. And it just reminds me in a way that it's very difficult for Stephen King, apparently, to do a book that is completely non-supernatural. I mean, he's done some. You know, Mr. Mercedes is one that I just read.
Is it Misery?
Misery, also completely non-supernatural. You're absolutely right. But I mean, in a sense, Stephen King, you really get there along the way. Right. No, but along the way, he will often take something that seems to be going in a completely non-supernatural way, and then he'll start to stitch supernatural elements in. But you're totally right. Yeah, you know, Cujo, Gerald's Game, Lisey's story winds up going in a supernatural direction. It's a thing that he does often. I'm not complaining. I mean, I really like The Stand, but it's funny that he goes in that direction. Yes, I've always been charmed by MOON. That spells podcast. So, all right, to begin, we begin wherever, you know, in New England, where teenage, quote unquote, teenage Franny, played by Molly Ringwald.
Well, before we get into that, though, you have to remember this. We talked about the opening credits. This also has very bitchin' opening credits.
It does. I don't remember. What was bitchin' about them?
It's got like all the pictures of like in a more urban setting this time of like dead people everywhere and abandoned cars and everything, while it plays like this very, I can't remember the song title of that. Hey now, the dream is over.
Yeah, that's
like
Crowded
they made
House.
really
Yeah.
good use.
I thought of Jason the whole time.
They made really good use of pop music in the opening credits twice over. Like I'm not one that normally wants pop music in my horror films. So I feel like that kudos for them to pulling that off not once but twice.
It is strange. It's funny. It completely escaped my mind that appears. And Tony, you're totally right because I'm a big Crowded House fan. So I've always been amazed because it's in this first sequence, and we'll do this. We'll sort of bundle up these scenes as much as we can so we don't make this drag for hours. But this first sequence, in rapid succession, Franny has lost her dad and she's still alive, and Harold, the nerd that we talked about last time, comes over and they try to figure out what they're going to do next. And to commemorate the Earth, which has apparently essentially died, they play Crowded House, which I find fascinating. The idea that what piece of music, will I play to remember, society, and what they choose is, some random 80s new wave, which, I dig, but I always thought it was hilarious that Don't Dream It's Over was going to be the one song that Franny would choose to commemorate the Earth.
Well, it is Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, no, you're right. It probably, I guess that's the thing. It would have been too on the nose for her to play Simple Minds, for like I always like this. Yes, Don't You Forget About Me, So anyway, we're meeting Harold and Franny.
She's burying her dad.
Yeah, and Harold wants to go to Stovington because he knows that Stovington has a lab owned by the Centers for Disease Control.
Well, but before you get to that, though, it's really sad when she's burying her dad. She's singing Amazing Grace, and then she asks him to help her, and then they just sit together, and he's got such a crush on her, and she doesn't. I was telling Jason, I'm like, oh man, I was in this exact, not the part where the burying your dad, thankfully, but the part where she's like, this guy has a crush on her, and she's just kind of like, oh yeah, no, we're just friends, but I'm gonna lay my head in your lap. I was in that exact same scenario at one point in college, and I felt watching that scene, I felt so bad. I was like, oh my God, I feel so guilty now,
right?
Because that's such a she's so insensitive. Like it was such a tease thing to do. Like, oh yeah, no, we're just friends. I'm gonna put my head in your lap. I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And I did that.
I mean, that's what college is like.
Yeah,
that's I've heard. So
you've heard.
Okay, but yeah. So and Harold has gotten cooler because he's in kind of a situation where he has kind of everything he ever wanted. Because and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people like this in this world, where some people are, they're immune, so they're alive, and everybody they ever hated is dead. Of course, Harold says all those people who were mean to me are dead, and I actually want them back. I want the world back.
But the way the actor plays it, you kind of sense that he doesn't actually mean that.
I agree with you. Yeah.
A big part of this, and touching back on the Romero influence, like a lot of this, not just that, but later sequences as well, they play up the fantasy aspect of the sort of post-apocalyptic survivor where, kind of there's this, all of us crave this world where there would be no more rules or social structures. And, the original Dawn of the Dead does that heavily, and I would argue still better than a lot of more modern things. But this does a lot of that quite well.
What do you mean by that? Are you talking about, hey, let's go steal some motorcycles?
Let's go steal some motorcycles, or there's the people in New York who, hey, let's go into a really fine restaurant that we couldn't normally afford, and we'll just take all the food out of the fridge and make ourselves steak. All that kind of stuff. I mean, I do think, and it's becoming more common, because of stuff like The Walking Dead, that this is a fantasy scenario that a lot of people find desirable on some level. Like this. Okay, we're humanity without the brakes now. We're if the shit got real, we're who's left, and we're gonna play with play without the rules.
I think that's right. I totally buy that. And the more chaotic people are maybe going to play a lot rougher, and the ones who aren't are going to have this sort of easy rider fantasy where there's not going to be rules, but everything's going to be awesome. Tony, I heard you speak up. Did you just say something?
No, I was just thinking of some of my favorite. I just like that the diversity of what happens. I think we've gotten more realistic now. Like Walking Dead, for all the eye-rolling parts that I sometimes see, is a little bit more realistic as far as people dealing. They don't automatically like shave their heads to mohawks and wear. As cool as that is, don't get me wrong. Like, I love all of it.
Oh, you mean the Mad Max thing where they're all driving around in rat rods with punk rock gear on?
And you were
the one, I can't remember that movie with the virus where half the people go to total feudal society.
Doomsday. It's a Neil Marshall movie.
Okay. No, I believe you. I don't know. I never saw it. But that's Neil Marshall, huh? The guy from Brotherhood of... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dog Soldiers and the Descent.
Yeah. I always thought that was a fascinating world where it's like feudal society or the whole, like, the concert that you see on Miniseries, in case you didn't feel like showing up. Those are the two societies we get in that society. I think that's fascinating too. I wouldn't have to say that this one is more realistic than either of those, but still it is. I think it's just the rules, although I still hold that most people who say they want anarchy, I think most of them probably don't. I think if you kicked in their door and threw a Molotov cocktail into their house and yelled anarchy, they'd probably be unhappy about that.
That's why it's a fantasy, though. That's why it's cool to watch it on TV, but I think a lot of people would puss out once he took away the plumbing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't remember on this podcast I've talked about it or not, but basically what really happens is if you aren't Lord Humongous, you're the dude on the back of that guy's chain to the back of that guy's bike. The other, like, in a true anarchy society, that's what happens. Is if you're not the biggest person to be, baddest person to be Lord Humongous, you're really not in a good position at all. But again, that's why it's a fantasy, right? Like.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's safe. People wouldn't really want that. There's people that think they want that.
No,
and,
no.
I know a couple of people who I do think might thrive in that kind of environment, or at least do okay. What King does is he sets up. Like there's never you don't have like your governor character in this because King already sets them up. Randall
Flagg's going to bring all those
Randall
together.
Flagg.
The governor would be a lieutenant. The governor would be a lieutenant of Randall Flagg. I mean, no doubt. Yeah. In the stand world. So yeah, I mean, and that's what it tends to be. I mean, that's how he does it, right? Like in this, the good people get certain dreams, and they go to Nebraska and then beyond, and bad guys get other dreams and go, hey, you know what? I should go hang out in Vegas.
I love the Las Vegas stuff so much as somebody who was a resident of Las Vegas.
I was saying that well, first of all, Jason and I were wondering how come the power's still on in Las Vegas but nowhere else.
Nuclear power plant.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the other thing was that I thought it was such a great scene when Garbage Can Man, or whatever his name is. That was his name?
Trash Can Man.
Yeah, wanders in after having Trash Can Man, sorry. When he wanders in after having probably walked for days in the desert and just falls into that pool, and I was thinking, I can imagine just how divine that would feel, when you feel like your skin is like, burning and it's just like peeling off. And
well,
then
it does show you how tough that character is, because the Nevada desert kills homeless people a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like if you live in Nevada, that's something that you see.
Yeah, that's part of his
thing.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, I mean that's part of his thing. He's already set cities on fire. And he survived that. Like he is this he's the human cockroach of the wasteland.
It's
Trash
so
Can
weird
Man
that
survived.
he is what he is. I mean, he's a totally crazy person. He's a pyromaniac. Skipping to Trash Can Man's whole storyline, the world has ended, and it's so awesome for him because now he can go around setting things on fire unimpeded, which is amazing.
In fact, he's rewarded by it. Like, not only unimpeded, but in fact, he's now got a master who goes, yeah, here, set a city on fire. This is going to be great.
Yeah. No, it's Des Moines. He blows up Des Moines.
Exactly.
All right, so tell me this, though. I got two questions. First, about the Trash Can Man. When Trash Can Man climbs up on top of the fuel depots and drops in dynamite to blow it up, there's a brief moment where he hears voices from his childhood making fun of him, kids who play with fire, with the bed, all this stuff. And, okay, voices in your head is something that reads pretty well on a page in the novel, but it always strikes me as not the best choice in a movie, where it just seems kind of strange and literary and a little cheesy.
I don't mind so much.
It didn't bother me.
Doesn't bother anybody else.
I think that's fine.
I mean, and I think, if you take a movie like The Fugitive, when Richard Kimball is remembering stuff, what they do is they give you image flashes of his memories instead of just the voices. So that's interesting. It didn't bother you guys. To me, it's a little bit too much page. It's too much of Stephen
You're
King.
looking at it just as like it's a audio flashback. I was looking at it sort of shorthand that this guy suffers from some kind of schizophrenia.
Yeah, totally. Because he's like actually looking around, like, what the hell? Like, where's that coming from? It's not that he's just remembering anything. He actually hears it.
No, that's
exactly. Like it was a way of using audio to illustrate that this isn't just like a shoddily dressed tramp that's being, pushed around by Randall Flagg. Like, this is a guy that even prior to the apocalypse was not playing with all of his marbles.
Also, by the way, it's an audio flashback because they don't have the money to shoot a lot of young Trash Can Man inserts.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
but I mean, so maybe I'm wrong. I think that Stephen King has a tendency. And look, I love this thing. Okay, I'll defend this miniseries before anybody else. But I think he has a tendency to not cut stuff that maybe works better on the page than on screen. But you guys think that works better or works just as well, so that's fine. Likewise, Trash Can Man is forced to utter the words "bomp-de-bomp, my life for you," which again I think plays a little better on page than on screen.
Again, this guy's supposed to be he a crazy homeless guy, and we got plenty of those here in Austin, and I buy it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
Look,
okay,
I was pointing out the stuff I thought was cheesy last week. If I thought this was cheesy, I would.
Yeah. Well, no, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe
you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But I'm totally willing to go. No, Jason, you're being too harsh. This actually works. That's fine. All right. Second question, though. This is a plot question. Is this world a Manichaean world where people, through the things they do, are either fall to the right of the line or the left of the line as far as being good or bad, so you get, and depending on which side of the line you fall on, you get which dream, Abigail or Flagg, or does everybody get both, but they really only kind of internalize and respond to one? In other words, is everybody hearing both the dreams?
I think it
most
looked like
everybody is, yeah.
I think some people were. I mean, they definitely showed where people were getting both, and they talk about that. And I think maybe there's some people who just right.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think it's a choice somewhat, but again, I mean, King plays it pretty fast and loose. The good guys are going to go with the good places, and the bad people are going to go with the bad people, and they're pretty divided. Yeah. I mean, eventually there's some ambiguity once it picks up, I guess, in the next episode. But in general, to get the story going, and remember, there's also an uncut version of this, which I read and loved. But man, that thing is wow. That is a piece of text.
Yeah, no,
that's a long chunk. That's a doorstop of a book.
Even though I think it's great, a freaking long book. But yeah, that uncut re-release from like 1994, that thing was he added like another 25% or something to it.
Yeah, I mean it's huge.
Enormous.
I still like it, but yeah, I mean it's definitely, and that's I think that's kind of cool. He's like, look, you can read the short one. Here's the one I wanted to make. I'm Stephen King writ large now. Here's this if you want it, and all caps Stephen King as opposed to what he used to be. That's how I always signify it. So I think it's cool we have both. But yeah, I don't know. I think, there's probably a bunch of people who just kind of hole out and don't follow either dream too, but that doesn't make following those people hanging out at their house is very exciting.
Well, and I like that.
And these people stayed home. Ta-da! Right.
Well, Tom Cullen makes this point. Well, it's not Tom Cullen. It's Nick, where Tom says, "Hey, we could run. They could be bad people," and Nick says,
Or they could be like us.
They could be like us. There's both kinds, and we have to be on the lookout. So both sides. I mean, really, all of this is it starts out as a fun kind of exercise where Stephen King writes the end of the world, and then having done that, now he's into a thing where he goes, he just imagines, what would it be like if all the good people are trying to find the other good people and all the bad people are trying to find the other bad people.
I think Loris and Giacomo is the only one who doesn't get the vision of the good guys, because she belongs to Randall Flagg.
So let's talk about them. In New York, eating steaks at the nice restaurant, as Drew mentioned, are Larry and Nadine. Larry, the rocker, whose career has been unfortunately cut short by the end of the world, and Nadine, a woman who I don't know how to describe.
She's an ambiguous drug addict, for one thing.
Yeah, she's a drug addict. She is a few strawberries short of a fruit basket. She is played by the beautiful Lauren Giacomo. Laura, yeah, and she's we don't know, but we soon learn that she's getting visions nobody else is getting, which is that she is promised to be the bride of Randall Flagg, to be kind of the bride of Satan. But for now, she's hooked up with Larry. They're traveling together, and they have to decide. And Larry says, "Listen, I'm planning to make this pilgrimage to Nebraska because I think that's where everybody else is going." And she initially comes with him, but there's a really scary sequence in the book that really only gets like 3 minutes of screen time in the movie, because I think even King knows that it's difficult to make room for. Do you know what this is? Can anybody name this sequence?
When they're going through the tunnel, I'm assuming.
Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, right? Yeah, they have to cross out of the city, and so they have to go through this tunnel. And Stephen King describes it beautifully. It's a long sequence of like walking through the dark and visions. In the movie, it's short because walking through the dark, it's just very difficult to make all that scary here. It's reasonably scary, but it becomes. Right. It's just one of the things that he has to go through. Nadine initially doesn't want to go with him, and that's the suspense of the piece, is that Nadine says, "I'm not going to go with you. I'm too scared of tunnels." And then she does, because she wants to, she's struggling. Now, I think Nadine is actually struggling in the same way that Harold is going to be struggling, which is that she is kind of crazy, and so she is kind of drawn towards the chaotic. But she wants to do well. When she says, "I'm really sorry," when she begs him to help her, and she's sorry that she took the pills and blah blah blah, I think there's a pathos there that you feel sorry for her and you want to help her. And I think that's like Harold. Harold will incline. There will be many times when he wants to be like the really best version of himself. But some people just can't ever be the best version of themselves.
Right.
Very deep, Jason.
Oh, well, it wasn't intended to be deep. Mm-hmm. It was just like, but basically, their storyline ends with they get all the way to Pennsylvania, and she is tempted to have sex with Larry, and Randall Flagg he has plans for her, and so he finally says, I think you should leave Larry. You need to leave him. And we, for the first time, see Randall Flagg in a couple of these visions by Nadine and also by Miguel Ferrer. And it's, we see Jamie Sheridan and he talks and all of this stuff. So can somebody explain? Let's talk about the appearance of Randall Flagg, who, and we'll leave.
I think the best introduction is actually not the dream, but when he goes and gets the guy out of the jail cell, because that's really when we finally get a sense of what his personality is like.
Yes. All right. So tell us about that, because I've been talking.
The guy that previously shot up a liquor store is now
Miguel Ferrer is the actor.
The last man alive in a prison. He's been living off of rat, and
that would suck to be like the last man alive.
Especially since it's probably raw. And,
I think in general, probably a bunch of people probably just starve to death. Like, if you have a prison like that, that's, that's got to be really bad.
It would be really awful,
And so this mysterious man enters the prison dressed head to toe in the most denim they could probably, find. With the most awesome Mel Gibson mullet that has ever belonged to somebody not Mel Gibson. And he comes and he makes the criminal an offer to get him out of the prison if he will be his lieutenant. Essentially, it's a literal deal with the devil, but it's a very playful devil. He does like a terrible W.C. Fields impersonation. He actually says, "Pleased to meet you. Won't you guess my name?" I mean, he's very,
a little classical reference.
Yeah.
A
little classical reference. And he's smiley. He's handsome. He's Jamie Sheridan, which
he's very much the baby boomer version of what a charming devil would be like. He's got all his hippie buttons on his denim coat. I like this guy. I guess that's sort of the point. He is likable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he says, I think there's something special about you. Lloyd's the guy's name. I think there's something special about you, and, I'm going to put you in my council, which is the second person he's promised that to, the council.
Higher than even Trash Can Man.
Right, absolutely. And, so he's named Trash Can Man and Lloyd as two important people, and he sees something in Lloyd, and Lloyd, who, of course, is dizzy with hunger, but still, this is very moving to Lloyd because nobody has ever seen anything in him before. Isn't that beautiful? This notion that and horrible. This notion that the
it reminds me a lot of it might be just because I've been rewatching Buffy, but it reminds me a lot of The Mayor and Faith.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
Hey, before we leave Randall Flagg, you need to talk about we were going to talk about which actors were not.
Yeah, one of our readers was asking, "Hey, talk about who all was
not cast as Randall Flagg." So we've got, according to IMDb, it says that Christopher Walken, Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, and James Woods were all considered, but then they decided they wanted to do a lesser known face. But it would be interesting. Any of those choices would certainly be interesting. I think Willem Dafoe is kind of a little obvious.
Willem Dafoe would have been good. I actually think James Woods would have pulled off the look a little bit more believably than Willem Dafoe. I think I said this before we started recording. I think if you've seen The Prophecy, you know exactly how Christopher Walken would have played this character.
Yeah,
sure.
Willem Dafoe had played the part. What was that? The Wild at Heart. He had played a sort of a devilish part in Wild at Heart, which is funny because that's not so long after he had played Jesus really well as well. I mean, Willem Dafoe is always a very watchable actor. Mm-hmm. Christopher Walken, I get kind of tired of his shtick all the time. I mean, I think I would have.
Well, I mean, plus he was in Dead Zone. I mean.
Yes, no, that's true, and I'm probably being too hard on Christopher Walken. I mean,
I enjoy Christopher Walken.
Yeah. So, I probably would have enjoyed watching it, but you're exactly right when you say that when you think about it, you know exactly what every note of Christopher Walken would be like. Jamie Sheridan is nobody's idea of Satan in my mind. So at least it's against type, because all this guy is I mean, he's
in my head I suddenly went.
But see, Jason, he was exactly what they intended. Because I don't really think like you're mentioning these other movies. This is what I know this guy from, as somebody that was a teenager when this was coming out. Like this was Randall Flagg to me. Like if they had gone with keeping with Christopher Walken, I would have instantly thought of like Batman Returns. You know, like the Prophecy. I don't know which came first, but you know all these other things that I've seen True Romance, like all these other things that I'd seen Christopher Walken in. And, you know, because they had gone with a less-known actor, it did work because I just think of this guy as Randall Flagg.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I think, you know, they've chosen an actor who's extraordinarily conventionally handsome. You know, Jamie Sheridan I have no idea if anybody, you know, just yearns for Jamie Sheridan. I have no idea. But I know that he is a very conventionally handsome actor. And he plays like... you know, he's the boss on one of the Law and Order shows, and I think of him as the sort of loser dad in the Ice Storm. You know, my point is, I like all the things I'm saying. I like that he's Randall Flagg. I really do enjoy him. Although, you know, I think I probably would have enjoyed the guy who plays Larry as Randall Flagg more. You know, I thought of Randall Flagg as being physically darker of hair, darker of, you know, and leaner, because Jamie Sheridan is like, for some reason, Jamie Sheridan is ridiculously buff in this movie. You know, he's like.
Well, I mean, they're obviously operating on the idea that evil should be attractive.
Yes.
Right.
No, for sure. But I mean, if it had been Christopher.
I mean,
Walken,
I don't know where that leads you with the giant mullet, but.
Right. Well, remember, Mel Gibson was wearing this kind of mullet at the time.
No, again, and I think a lot of this is shorthand. You know, there's a lot of the things that preoccupy Stephen King in his writing is stuff that seems to preoccupy like leftovers of the baby boomer generation, and a lot when I look at how they styled Flagg, like I saw a lot of guys in my parents' age group dressed like him, how Randall Flagg is dressed during this time period.
Sure.
He should fight. He should hang out with the Renegade. Into Lamont.
That would be great. If Renegade had to like team up with Randall Flagg whenever they came in up against a really bad guy, you know, God, what a wonderful notion.
One evil, even ultimate evil can't stand.
That's right. Mullets for days.
I had a mullet like this, I have to say.
Oh man, I had a mullet, and I caught a lot of crap for having quote unquote long hair before Billy Ray Cyrus made it cool for rednecks to have that same haircut. And there's a lot of reasons I should have caught crap for that haircut. It being long isn't one of them, and yet that's what it was like. So
yes.
You know,
I kind of love that he's got a mullet. You know, I think he's the most awesomely white trash bad guy imaginable. Like as somebody with country roots, and I don't know how Tony feels about this as well. Like that makes me like him.
What's kind of funny too is he's actually this world, like he's the world of this. Like time and place, he's that devil. Because in the Gunslinger, he's a different devil. You know, Randall Flagg is Satan. Then in all the different places, he's different. So I like the idea that, you know, in 94's plague-ridden apocalypse, this is the devil. This is how he would choose to appear, and he's like you said, the baby boomer devil. With the mullet, he's still cool looking, you know. Yeah. And that's what he is.
He's a physically perfect specimen of the baby boomers as well, you know. So yeah, he's a fantasy of what anybody would want to be.
Well, he's the ultimate midlife crisis.
Yes. Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, although it just occurred to me that Mel Gibson would have been a really good Randall Flagg, actually.
I think Matthew McConaughey, I know like I keep saying this, but like they're doing a remake in McConaughey's Flagg, and I think that's going to be awesome.
No, I think that's going to be good, especially after having seen him in True Detective. I think, it's going to be good.
Yeah, and stuff like Mud and things like that, where he's been just very complicated. I agree. I think he's grown into just a fantastic older.
Especially if he motors around Las Vegas in a was it a Lincoln?
The old Lincoln.
Rubbing a booger between his fingers and.
Oh, awesome!
Oh man.
Okay, Abigail. We also meet Abigail. Abigail is 160. This is the first time we've met her in person. She's been appearing to every damn slightly nice person who's still alive after the plague in their dreams, where she plays guitar and says, "You come and see me, you and all your friends." And now we see her at her farmhouse, just sort of puttering around and talking to God and saying, "Well, God, I all these people are coming to visit." And it's so interesting. She has been called in the same way that Nadine has been called to go
and
to
apparently
the side.
Nick has too.
Yeah, that all these people have been called, and she's been called. God has summoned her in a sense, and it's really interesting. This is Ruby Dee. She was the dad of Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show. I'm the mom. I'm sorry. I can't believe that.
His casting. She was the dad.
Well,
that's good makeup.
Well, if only we had a post to clean things up. No, but yeah, she had been on the Cosby Show and stuff like that. But you meet her and you realize, well, she's just a regular human. This is all kind of beyond her too, And twice she complains about her lot. Once,
well,
she asked God. Yeah.
I think that's what's interesting. I think a lot of like I said, I have a bunch of friends, some of them more militant atheists than others. And I have a few friends who actually have taken, who are like, I like the science part. I really take affront to the Jesus part. That ruined it. Screw Stephen King. He sucks. What an awful, terrible thing.
But you're talking about horror fiction, which is
no.
Right.
Look, you're preaching the choir here. I'm saying
He's
that
quoting the people who are not
here.
here.
Yeah. So, but I do still think that maybe they forget that. I just still think it's interesting that even she, who we think is the Messiah character, because she calls the people to her, or at least she's the Moses character.
She's the prophet.
She's she has those moments of I guess she is supposed to be, Moses. She's like, hey, now I have to leave my house. I don't know what you're doing, God. This really sucks. I kept it together, and when she has to leave her house is when she finally goes, wow, I know that you have a path for me, but this is really it better be good, And the parts where you see those cracks, a lot of people would just keep her as the most saintly, hey, no, don't worry about it, and give platitudes of don't worry about it, everything's going to work out. But even she has these crises of faith. And I don't know, I'd forgotten about that, and I find that, I thought that was pretty interesting, that, you could write that a lot of different ways, and I think where he went with that was actually pretty cool. So, at least it was more nuanced than I had remembered it, I suppose.
Well, and think how many people are going to write a modern story and one of their main characters is going to be a completely destitute 106-year-old farm woman who is having visions. I mean, Stephen King is going places that I think most writers wouldn't go. And normally what we mean by that is that he's doing something really heinous. But in this case, it's just kind of imaginative, the things, the people he's interested in showing us. I also love that
she still comes off as the most fanciful character. Tony's right that the sort of crisis of faith aspect of it, grounds her. She's still the most fanciful character in the whole thing to me.
No, I totally agree with you there. It is she is, superhuman in ways that we're led to believe that she's more human, of course, than Randall Flagg, who's the eternal Satan.
Right.
But she still is supernatural in ways that other people in the book aren't.
Yeah. Right. she has way more visions. You know, when people show up, and we'll wrap back around to that, but when people show up, she goes, listen, I've been told that we're going to be like a snowball running downhill and collecting people as we move to Boulder.
And they're like, told by whom?
Yeah. In other words, she's gotten some pretty detailed visions, you know.
Right.
She's really in tune. That's her only power. She has no physical ability to defend herself. There's nothing, you know, she's every bit as vulnerable as you know, that weird half-seer baby that sticks out of Jeffrey Lewis's stomach in Total Recall. I mean, she's basically vulnerable, you know, but she's
very vulnerable concerning the fact that she's extremely elderly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. By the way, when they move her to Boulder, they load up the back of the pickup truck, they strap in her rocking chair, and she rides. Basically, they create a rumble seat for her, and she rides in the rocking chair, facing forward, presumably for 26 or 30 hours of driving. And this is amazing to me. I'm like, because they did that in the Beverly Hillbillies, too, you know, where Granny rode in the pickup truck. It's true.
Uh-huh. No, you're right. I just didn't think about it.
You know, when they loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly, they moved Granny in the back in a rocking chair. And I'm thinking, did any human being ever do this? Or, you know, because that just seems crazy to me.
Well, when I was watching it, Jamie was like, why is Boomer in the front and the old lady in the back?
Well, I think it is kind of that way. I think, like,
I was thinking the same thing.
when she was younger, you know, you get in the back of the truck and, like, you know, she's got her rocking chair, which is one of the few touchstones. I mean, I thought the same thing at first. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, you know, she's got a rocking chair. It's a touchstone to her house, that kind of thing. Like, I agree with you, but I also, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, I don't think it's as weird for her. Although, you know, I also think back to, it was a few months ago, I was thinking back to, my parents, we had a van. I don't know how we survived it. We were so lucky that we never got in a wreck. We had a van. Yeah. The back seat, the seat in the van, this is like a panel, you know, like a van, sure. Chevy van kind of thing. We had a recliner in the back of the van. There's no seat belts there. There was a bar. There was a speaker. There was a bar that I guess at one point in time probably you could put clothes on. But, like, there's a metal bar in the middle of the van that we had a speaker on it for the stereo. But I was just thinking back, like, that's so not safe. We went to Texas so many times, just stuff in the back, Christmas presents. I can't even imagine, like, the level of safety that we have now are, like, it's unbelievable to think about. Like, we were blessed in some way. There was never a wreck, or even we have to put the brakes on fast.
Well, I mean, it's right, exactly.
That would have been such a travesty.
Single car wrecks do happen. You know, somebody driving around by themselves and they wreck their car, suddenly there's a turn they didn't see. You know, so yeah, I mean, people get thrown out of the back of pickup trucks all the time. That happens, you know, but yes, I rode in the back of pickup trucks. So, you know, a lot of people still do. So you're right that she probably wouldn't think of it. And luckily, most people are dead, so, you know, there's not going to be a lot of traffic. They're probably going to drive at a nice, leisurely, you know, 30 miles an hour for the next couple of days to get to
Colorado. The hot sun is a totally different story, but, you know, we can, you know, that's not fun storytelling, so.
I know. Maybe it just, you know, maybe when they actually get going, she deploys an umbrella. You know, I don't know. Because I also wonder if the wind whipping up over the cab of the truck will actually arc right over her and not. I don't know. You know, I
think we probably spent far too long thinking about poor Granny in the back of the truck.
Yeah. So I have one more thing I want to discuss, and then we should wrap up this episode. And that is Nick and Tom. We're going to come back around now to the Mice and Men. Nick Andros, as we said, the Billy Budd-like, Jesus-like, wandering dude who, you know, was a really nice guy, is riding his bicycle through a little town, and he comes across a glorious 8-foot-tall man-child named Tom Cullen, who is, in Nick's words, mildly retarded. And Nick picks him up like a straggler, basically. That he's gonna, start traveling with him, and I love this relationship. I mean, I love it. I love the moments that these characters are together, because it's like one of the first moments of like unrelenting kind of joy that Stephen King brings to all of this. Because suddenly it looks like the apocalypse could be a good time, because they're going to drive around and just sort of hang out and enjoy themselves. I mean, Drew, you said that it's a ripoff of Mice and Men, but does that get in the way of your enjoying it, or how are you feeling about it?
No, I still like the relationship. It was the few times in this episode where I found myself kind of groaning at the same time. I am a cynic that strives to be an optimist, so I groan easily at sentiment, even though I like that it's there.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. He's a sweetheart. I mean, the Tom Cullen character is a sweetheart, and boy, there are going to be some moments. I don't even remember if they do this in the miniseries.
I love that the way he's introduced is that he's taken these mannequins and put them out in the street as just kind of as a project to keep himself occupied, but also to kind of recreate normal life where there's actual people around.
Yeah, he doesn't quite grasp that everybody's died. It's just too big a thing for him to think about. I'm not saying that it would. I mean, it literally. I don't think it dawns on him that such a thing is even possible. He knows his mother died of the super flu, but which he calls a cold. But he thinks everybody else just left town, which I guess they did. But he doesn't really know that the world's come to an end. It's really interesting. I love his MOON. That spells moon. And later on, Stephen King will even pull a fast one on us and have that end up being really important to the plot, which is remarkable. I just love the way this guy works. But right now, MOON, that spells whatever, is going to be, his that calling card. They hit it off and start traveling together. And, yeah, the last thing we should mention is they do run into the perfectly rotten Julie.
But kind of hot. Let's be honest.
Very hot. No, totally hot. But she's too twisted. She's insensitive towards Tom Cullen. She says, "Look, he don't matter. He's too stupid. He doesn't think like us. So you can make out with me. You don't have to hurry," and so on.
Even though she's almost like she acts even more flighty. Although I think in the book, doesn't he end up sleeping with her? Like, instead of just having it be uncomfortable. I think it was a longer. I think it's fine for what's in the miniseries. I think it got. I just remember it maybe being creepier or maybe because she's like, oh, by the way, did I mention how old I was? And it's like, whoa, there. It was something like that, if I remember correctly.
And also remember, there's two versions of the stand, so I don't.
That's true. That's part of why I don't remember either.
Well, and King is a big perv. I mean, because there's also there's yet another trademarked Stephen King gun rape in the uncut version of The Stand, whereas in the uncut version of Gunslinger. I mean, I don't know what this guy. Fascinating. I don't know. I don't know why his mind goes there, but he's our national treasure. So I don't know where to go after that. You know what? We should save the discussion of Ray Walston and the relationship of Stu Redman and Molly Ringwald for next time, because we've definitely gone long, and they'll be leads, so we can get back to them. Is there anything we haven't touched on? Two days.
Harold's awesomely ill-fitting biker leathers, maybe.
Yeah.
Leathers, those stupid studs. Yeah, Harold. And we'll talk about him some more. He's been riding with Franny. Everything's going great for him as long as everybody else is dead. But he's instantly jealous of anybody else who's around. But we should save it,
especially Gary Sinise.
Yes, absolutely Gary Sinise, who says, I'm not going to make time with Franny, but we know that that's not where that's going to go. That he obviously is going to make time with Franny. Have they established that Franny is pregnant?
No.
No, but she is, right? Isn't that right?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
Okay, well then, never mind. Because now as I'm thinking through it, I might be completely wrong. It might just never mind. I could have sworn.
I'm trying to go at this as virginal. I've had people actually write me on Facebook, and I did read the book once in junior high. I don't remember a heck of a lot about it. I did watch this miniseries several times. I don't remember a heck of a lot about it. I'm trying to use that to
forget I said that
the
because,
podcast.
Well, no, forget I said that because, in fact, I may be completely wrong. So don't even.
I'm trying to look at this through virginal eyes, if you will.
And I might just be thinking about the remake of Dawn of the Dead. Who knows?
Okay.
All right. So let's leave it there and get final thoughts for night 2, and we'll go in the same direction. And that was Tony, Drew, Julia, and then I'll figure out if I have anything more I could possibly add. Tony, lay it on us. Second night, how are we doing?
It is cheaper than I remembered it, but I still really like it, and I think in large part because I really like the book, and King writing his own teleplay. I think he's done well with teleplay. I like Golden Years, which I think may also be on Netflix, and I think he's done well on TV. So I think it's interesting to see him. It's interesting to see the author pick the beats that he wants and tell the beats that he wants. And I think in this case, I think that's kind of neat. I'm digging it, and I'm looking forward to the other parts. I do remember for some reason I think I was dreading the end, but I can't remember exactly why. But I guess we'll discover that.
CG,
I think it is that because I don't. I remember there was part of the ending where I was like, kind of, oof. I don't know, but we'll leave that to the end. I'll remember then. But I really dig it, and I think, I think it's cool.
Very cool. All right, and Mr. Drew, what are you feeling?
I'm having fun with this. It is very, as Tony said, and I even kind of touched on this last week. It never, at any point, do I forget that I'm watching a TV movie from the mid '90s. But I was a kid during the mid '90s, so I guess that stuff gets glossed over in a wave of nostalgia because I'm having fun revisiting this. And like I said, I'm trying to. I'm having those fuzzy memories jogged the more I talk about it, but I'm trying to suppress them because I would like to experience this as clear-headed as possible. But I like it.
Excellent. Julia, final thoughts until we come back for part 3.
I was just thinking about how much I enjoyed Matt Frewer, and if you guys, I don't know, I always say that you guys are probably too young to remember stuff, and then you always get mad. But are you old enough to remember Max Headroom?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
And it's one of the best pieces of cyberpunk fiction.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Awesome.
It's too bad that there are parts that are dated enough about Max Headroom that may cause people to scoff, except the underlying story of the episodes of Max Headroom are really much further ahead than they have any right to be. And scarily, a lot of Max Headroom stuff has come to pass, which is every time I see like the way commercials are and stuff like that, and I think of Blipberts and stuff like that, I'm just, that show was way ahead of its time. And
so that'll be my
still worth checking
endorsement.
out.
Find Max Headroom episodes if you can.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's
yeah.
all. I was just remembering that fondly.
Yeah, no, it was
That's
fantastic. I remember, how amazing it was, that whole notion that journalists would carry cameras around and film their own news as they just wandered, and how innovative all that was. Very cool. for my part, I just wanted to mention that this is such a big deal. You know, this thing was 366 minutes long. It says, you know, and look, there were longer miniseries. You know, things like Winds of War and Shogun and all that stuff were super long. But this is the kind of thing that I think in '94 the TV just wasn't doing much anymore, where you were just going to give the writer time to get as much of a book onto the screen as he could, and it's an interesting experiment in that way. And I'm really enjoying it. I said last time that I kind of have a fondness for TV movies anyway, because I'm always interested in you know, the simplicity of them as far as how they're shot and how they're lit and everything like that. So for me, this is actually really, really enjoyable so far. And I remember watching it fondly back in '94 because we were in school. Joy and I were we were already together, and I remember watching this, you know, every night, not even studying for like a week, because this was
in '94. You said
in '94.
That's when we got married, actually.
No, I know.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we were really
together.
married.
We were married.
We were married for like 4 months, and this was going on. So yeah. So that's this part 2. All right. We really appreciate you guys being with us. Here's what
you not doing endorsements?
Oh yeah. God, man, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
I mean, I already did mine, but in case anybody else.
What was your endorsement?
Max Headroom.
Max.
The choice of a new generation.
Yes. Yeah, no kidding. Do you have any endorsements for us?
Tony?
Oh, is it me or is it Drew?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, Tony, you're first. Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
I am going to. Well, first off, I have to say that I've been revisiting and enjoying Danger 5 on Netflix, an Australian absurdist spy comedy that's just total wackadoo. I think I like the first season set in like they're trying to kill Hitler constantly. He's the main bad guy. The second one is set in the 80s, and I didn't like it quite as much because I saw parts of it in Fantastic Fest this past year, but it's super fun. It's extremely absurd and ridiculous, and Jason, I think you would like it. Drew, maybe, but I think Jason, you'll dig it. So you should check out Danger 5.
Online, it says that it presents a 1960s interpretation of World War II, which sounds like the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
You know, their boss is an eagle-headed boss. They fight. You have to see it. It won't make any sense if I try to explain it to you. You just kind of have to roll with it. The other thing is, and I have to preface this by saying that this podcast is in no way affiliated where I'm doing contract work. However, I am doing contract work. I'm on the tech vendor team for Red versus Blue from Rooster Teeth, which is their flagship show, which started Rooster Teeth in general. And the first 2 episodes are out on roosterteeth.com. They're actually running a sale of all kinds of cool merchandise to celebrate their 12th anniversary. And I'm really proud of the team I'm working with on that. Like I said, they do podcasts. This is totally not affiliated with any of their podcasts at all. I just have to work there, but I'm really proud of the show we're putting out, and I'm really happy to be, you know, part of that team, because there's a lot of hard work from all the animators, tech team, compositing team. The writing is really, really awesome. Our writer/director, Miles, is really good at writing both action and just really funny dialogue. I've seen the stuff a ton of times, and I still laugh when I see an episode. And the first 2 episodes are released. I think we're releasing a new episode every Monday now for regular people and people who aren't sponsors, I must say. Regular people sounds weird. But you can sponsor. You have a sponsor account. It comes out a night early. But for people who aren't sponsors, it comes out every Monday night. And, so you can watch Red versus Blue Season 13. And I think it's going to be really good, not only because I worked there, but because I've watched it and I enjoyed it, and I was a fan before I even worked it at Rooster Teeth. So there you go.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You should post it. Okay. Mine actually is something from like about a year and a half ago, but I don't remember if I recommended it then, but it fits in here. The Spoils of Babylon is a parody of big, overstuffed TV miniseries, of the kind that The Stand is one of the last of, really, but like that really hit their heyday with things like, Shogun and, like I say, Winds of War.
North and South.
Oh, yeah,
North and South, all those. So Spoils of Babylon is a huge, you can watch it on iTunes or on Amazon Instant Video, and I don't even know how to. It's just like one of those multi-generational, long-running things. In this case, about a foundling who joins a big oil baron's family in the Depression, and then eventually fights in World War II, and then invents,
a little like Downton Abbey, actually.
And then he invents beat poetry and becomes a nuclear scientist, and plays.
Oh, I heard good things about this.
Oh, it's brilliant. The thing of it is, it stars Tobey Maguire, Kristen Wiig, and it is narrated in person by Will Ferrell, who plays this extraordinarily fat
so funny
novelist. Like, he's basically Orson Welles, guzzling, big trunks of wine and talking, with this, with this giant beard that has food and wine in his beard, and it's just wonderful. And so if you kind of dig, the shtick of TV miniseries, you will love this, and so I can't recommend it enough. The Spoils of Babylon, that was a blast. It's coming back soon with a new season, so you must watch it. You'll see negative reviews sometimes online because people don't quite get what the hell is going on, because they'll be like, I don't understand this. This is too strange. No, it is. It's wonderful. It's created by Funny or Die, and they know what they're doing.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So that's that. All right. Now let me go back to the spiel.
Well, I didn't get to do my endorsements, Jason.
I'm sorry. Okay, once again.
You're all over the place tonight, man. You got to make sure you're getting that coffee.
I know. It's really sad. It's decaf. I don't know what happened. I'm drinking decaf.
Why would you? Why?
I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of it is.
I don't even understand that.
I don't even that's.
Right.
Yeah. Why?
I'm sorry. Drew, do you have any endorsements for us?
I do. I have two endorsements. One, this last weekend, well, Sunday specifically, Easter Sunday was my third wedding anniversary, but I had the entire weekend off, so we just kind of celebrated all weekend. And on Saturday, we went to the recently grand open. The grand opening has happened of Castle Sandor on South Congress, which is a science fiction, fantasy, and horror shop, and most importantly, it is a fully functioning wax museum, which is the
That's
thing
awesome.
that I feel like Austin has been lacking. I've always enjoyed wax museums. This one, they're still missing a few exhibits, but they have a lot of good stuff in there. It's heavily geared towards classic monsters, which of course I like as a big fan of, the oldies but goodies. And I can't wait to see what their new exhibits are. But it's right on South Congress. You can't miss it because it's a freaking castle. So if you are in Austin, it was created by the good people who brought you the Museum of the Weird, which is downtown. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, and I'm
Where
assuming
is it exactly on South Congress?
It is right. I'm trying to think of the nearest shop. It's like right across the street from all those like sort of Native American turquoise jewelry shops, and then you have that one eatery whose name escapes. I'm giving terrible directions. It doesn't matter. It's a castle.
I'm just wondering, I know that's thing. I can't picture where a castle would fit on South Congress. That's why I was trying to figure out where it was.
You believe me when I say it sticks out. You're going to have a hard.
Right.
Plus, they have Frankenstein's monster two times out of the day guiding people down there. So, my second endorsement, several weeks back while Jamie was on tour, I had myself like a little werewolf mini marathon, and I checked out Wolf Cop, which I'm not going to endorse that because that's getting enough buzz on its own. I thought that was fun. I didn't think it was great. The thing that surprised me actually was a movie called Late Phases, which is getting a lot of comparisons to Bubba Hotep because it takes place within a retirement community. However, and I love Bubba Hotep, but this movie is 1,000 times more grim than that. It's about a elderly Vietnam vet who moves into a retirement community. He's blind, but he's also the only one that seems to be figuring out that the animal that has been devouring the residents every full moon is a werewolf, and he decides to take it upon himself to kill the beast. It's more or less a character study. It reminds me a lot of Gran Torino, if you like that movie. It's this very old, very bitter man. And, you know, as somebody who said, I said earlier, have my extremely cynical side, I just enjoyed how relentlessly grim and awful this character was, and yet he's the hero of the piece. So if you're looking for a slightly different werewolf movie, this out of the recent kind of low budget ones that come out, this is the one that I would highly recommend because I just think it's very different and it's very well. You know, the creature design's a little wonky, but everything else about it is great.
Cool. Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, please post that on our Facebook page as well. Was there anything else that you wanted to
No, that's it. That is it.
All right. Okay. I apologize for completely botching all of the handoffs in that last segment. It will never happen again.
No, I don't think you should lose sleep over that, Jason. I think there's more important things in the world.
I agree.
All right. Let's do it this way. Facebook page. Come to the Castle of Horror Facebook page. Tell us what you're thinking about this series. This is an interesting new experiment, and we could do more of it if you dig it. And Netflix, is where you can watch The Stand. We're not necessarily promoting Netflix. I'm just pointing out that that's where you can watch all 4 episodes. So if you want to get caught up and join us, thank you for joining us from Bleeding Cool. Those of you catching us there, which is a lot of you, we want to hear from you. Leave us comments, especially on the Facebook page. Come back next week, and we will talk about part 3 of The Stand. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Bye.
Night.